Once, long ago, we left you with a gift so that you could unlock the proto-language's full potential.
We're going from Pacifica, through Oregon and Nevada, to New Jerusalem, Utah, to Chicago. And from there, into Canada.
Welcome to this in-depth review of Dustborn, a game that has garnered significant attention and controversy since its release, often being labeled as one of the worst games ever made. My goal with this review is to steer clear of all the culture wars and instead provide an objective analysis based on the game's merits, avoiding the social politics that have fueled much of the discourse around it. This review is full of spoilers, as we will deep dive into the details of the plot. You'll find links to all sections in the description, and they should be marked on the progress bar as well, in case you want to skip ahead. As a game reviewer, I care deeply about transparency and honesty on my videos. I've challenged myself to give this game a fair review to determine if it truly deserves the negative reputation it received, or if there are aspects that have been overlooked by people judging a book by its cover.
You're dead meat.
In recent years, we've seen a surge of low-effort content and the decline of quality of YouTube, with creators often producing high volumes of videos with minimal substance, reacting to other people, or repeating the latest trends to gain clicks and watch time. This type of content, sometimes referred to as slop, has influenced how games like Dustborn are perceived. Many reviews are based on out-of-context clips, incomplete playthroughs, or even fake reviews from people who have never played the game. To better understand why this happened, we need to consider that Dustborn was released in August 2024, just before a major AAA title called Concord launched. The failure of Concord was big news, as it was considered one of the biggest flops in video game history. Concord was a live service hero shooter with a heavy focus on social politics and inclusivity, which ultimately flopped and led to the closure of the studio. The timing of Concord's failure primed Dustborn to be an easy target of mockery and negative reviews, with many content creators capitalizing on the controversy for clicks. There is also the issue that Red Thread Games has a history of being government funded, previously with Dreamfall chapters and now with Dustborn receiving around $1.7 million from the Norwegian Film Institute and the European Union, as well as being speculated from receiving funding from the United States Counter-Disinformation program. The fact that the game was paid by taxpayers and not from sales meant the studio could focus on divisive and controversial political agendas instead of constructing an appealing game that will be successful.
You mentioned how America is a bit of a melting pot there, and you've got a very diverse array of characters. There's a lot of focus in the industry at the moment on making sure that characters that do come from different backgrounds are kind of authentically represented. How have you approached that challenge with Dustborn?
That's an interesting question, because as you probably know, like, there are a lot of gamers in the world who are unhappy with games that have characters that don't necessarily look like gaming characters used to look 10, 20, 30 years ago. We really set out to create a cast of characters that just feel like a representation of the world as it is today, and America as it is. You know, it's diverse. It's not just filled with people who look like me, and that's also why we've sort of tapped into the cast. We have writers who are more representative of the characters in the game, and trying to sort of just learn more and try to create a more diverse cast than most games have. Just because we think it's more interesting. It's the right thing to do, and I think the stories that come out of it are also, you know, they're more original. They're more interesting, I think.
What can I do for you this time, man?
Red Thread and our team can be proud of, and that is true to our values, and it's a game that's personal to us.
I guess actually that's the power of games, isn't it? Because what they are really good at is helping people to see through the eyes of somebody else, because there's that sort of interactive experiential element of them, which maybe you don't get so much in the other mediums. I guess that must be quite exciting, actually.
It is a lot more interactive, and you spend more hours, I think, doing it potentially. So maybe even on that level, I think gaming is really behind for representation, but yeah, I do think it's a good medium for that. I do think there is a big opportunity to make them more of a medium that people can use to change their views. I mean, it's still entertainment, it's still art. It doesn't always have to be that deep. But yeah, I do think it's a good medium for that. But we'll see. There's also quite a resistance to it.
I just want to end this intro by saying that even if I disagree with Dustborn's politics and the studio's business model, I'm a believer of free speech and the studio's right to express themselves. While I understand people's frustration around the topic, I think that cancel culture is harmful regardless of the side that engages in it. Like Hello Kitty Island, not every game needs to appeal to everyone, and Dustborn's approach deserves a fair assessment. Is the alternate future of 2030. You follow a group of fugitives on an undercover mission traveling from the west coast of the now divided states of America to a safe haven on the east coast of Canada. They carry critical data that might change the world, all while posing as a music band on a cultural exchange visa to avoid the authorities. You play as Pax, an anomal with supernatural powers called Vox or vocals, which can alter the perception of words. Alongside Pax, you'll meet Sai, Pax's best friend, Noam, Pax's ex, and Theo, the mission's leader. While the game touches many themes, Dustborn is infamous for its takes on diversity, inclusion, social media, politics, and gender identity. The game's message is very on the nose regarding its approach to its themes. For example, the character powers work around internet slang words as getting triggered or canceling your enemies. There's also a heavy emphasis on gender identity, as your crew includes a trans and a gender-fluid character for whom the game showcases the use of their neo-pronouns.
It's fine. It was nice meeting you, Miss Annie.
So are you and this lovely person?
It's them, Mom.
Sorry. So are you and them?
Where was this one at the time?
This one?
Were you there?
I don't like being referred to as either this one, that one, or it. I'm a person too,
Maybe less
you know.
attitude when you're talking to officers of the law.
And that's why I've come to believe that as none of you should be constrained by perceived gender, neither should I be constrained, or any of my kind. Why should Henry and Betty be man and wife? I wouldn't choose either role for myself. I reject all such roles.
What's eating her or them? I forget what conclusion CT came to last
Just
night.
let it be, Eli.
In the game's defense, while it lacks subtlety, these themes are implemented in a way that doesn't feel out of place if you can accept the premise and the topics it's trying to explore. Dustborn is a story-driven game where the dialogue system lies at its core. Your decisions shape the actions and endings of your crew members. Depending on how you handle conversations, your choices affect what the game calls quotas, essentially determining the different paths the characters can take. This adds replayability, as a second playthrough allows you to make different choices and steer the characters onto new paths. When I completed the game for the first time, I was pleasantly surprised to find that I didn't encounter any of the outrageous outcomes seen in early video reviews. Instead, Pax seemed like a well-rounded character. It turns out that it's up to the player to portray Pax as insufferable or understanding, which I believe is one of the game's strongest aspects, allowing players to influence Pax's personality. However, there are low points when you're forced to use Pax in a certain way, limiting player choice.
Shut the hell up!
Dustborn includes various minigames common in the adventure genre. The most notable is the echo catching mechanic, where you use your mouse to trap red orbs of energy that help Pax unlock new powers. While the rest of the minigames are serviceable, they aren't particularly memorable, and I never found myself eager to replay them. There are a couple of minigames I dislike. The first is the washing dishes on the boss. Every day they're dirty, but cleaning them has serious consequences and is not referenced at all, making it a waste of time. The second is the gift system. While some gifts are straightforward, others are obscure, and the characters aren't fleshed out enough for the gifts to make sense, only generating trivial conversations that don't offer deeper character insights. My main complaint with all the minigames is that it doesn't matter if you win them or not, making everything seem pointless. For example, while performing with the band, you can miss all the notes and the outcome will be the same as if you hit them all perfectly. This design choice is fine for easy mode, but on normal and above, there should be some resistance to make the game feel like a game and not a movie. Combat is a significant part of Dustborn, but it can be optional depending on the difficulty level. While combat sequences are usually easy, they become mandatory on hard mode, offering the only real challenge in the game. On lower difficulty settings, most minigames, including the combat, can be skipped, making hard mode the preferred choice for players who want some gameplay. Pack's main weapon is a returning baseball bat that can be thrown. As you progress through the game, you loot battery packs that let you upgrade your bat skills. Your companions also assist in combat with their own powers, allowing for the creation of combos. At first glance, the comic book themed combat seems appealing, and I really wanted to like it. In practice though, the combat quickly reveals its flaws. The repetitive animations, lack of sound variations, and weightless attacks made what could be a fun arcade beat 'em up feel like a drag. The targeting is problematic due to a lack of a lock-on system for enemies. Instead, the game relies on AI auto-targeting, which often results in missed attacks, causing frustration when heavy cooldown attacks fail to connect. The RPG elements are bland, with most skills upgrades offering only cooldown reductions or minor improvements, making them feel underwhelming and not particularly useful. An interesting narrative mechanic involves your companion sharing personal stories or details during combat, creating a lot of banter. However, this backfires as your word-based magic attacks interrupt NPC conversations, making the combat soundscape feel convoluted. While the idea is interesting, the execution is lacking because the nonchalant banter reduces tension in supposed life or death situations.
What, robots and all?
We did have a lot of jocks.
Oh, same thing. Which group were you part of?
The me group. I ate alone.
Oh, that's sad.
Not to me. I hated eating with other people.
I'm sorry to ask, but what's with all the talking?
Banter, it's Pat's thing. She doesn't supercharge her attacks.
In summary, the combat is passable but not a strong point for Dustborn. For veteran gamers, I recommend playing on hard mode as the combat is too easy on normal. The only downside to hard mode is that some boss fights with mechanics might kill you, and the game doesn't allow skipping cinematics, so you'll have to rewatch the same dialogues every time you die. Let's start by addressing the engine and the game's graphics. One of the aspects that initially drew me into the game was its art style, which reminded me of classic Telltale games. The blend of comic book inspired elements such as character backgrounds and story recaps complements the overall aesthetic and gives the game a distinct identity. While the mix of realistic and stylized visuals might feel unconventional or even divisive to some players, I found it to be an effective choice. Personally, I appreciated the graphics and felt they added to the game's charm. On the other hand, one of the key reasons Dustborn failed to resonate with players is its cast of largely unlikable characters. While there are multiple factors contributing to this, I believe the game's character design plays a significant role. The designs often lean into what many will consider ugly aesthetics. While bold, this choice likely alienated players as the characters are not visually appealing or relatable. For example, many characters are dressed in torn, filthy clothing without clear justification. Take Fred, a sentry at Camp Liberty who is barefoot and covered in dirt. Similarly, Siggy, who is seen cooking and washing dishes, wears clothes stained with engine grease, which raises questions about hygiene. Then there's Saul, a later game character portrayed as a rebel leader, demolition expert, eco-terrorist, and poet. Despite his multifaceted background, he wears socks with sandals even during long travels. These choices don't seem to serve a purpose beyond being intentionally unconventional. This aesthetic works on shows like Ren and Stimpy or Beavis and Butthead, where exaggerated ugly designs are integral to the humor and tone. However, in Dustborn, this approach doesn't enhance the storytelling or world building. Instead, it detracts from the player's ability to connect with the characters. Ironically, Pax stands out as a well-designed character both visually and in terms of personality. Perhaps she should have served as a base for all characters rather than being an exception. Another issue is the inconsistency between the realistic, intentionally unappealing designs of the main characters and the cartoony look of the more serious factions, such as the justice officers. They are meant to represent the spearhead of the fascist government, yet their exaggerated, cartoonish appearance clashes with the grounded aesthetic of the rest of the game. This visual disconnect not only feels jarring, but also undermines the tension and gravity the story is trying to convey. The comic book style drawings in Dustborn are inconsistent in quality, ranging from good to outright poor. Let's go through the cover arts first. Issue 0 presents the characters with well-defined lines and detailed artwork, setting a good standard. However, issue 1 takes a noticeable step back. Characters are drawn out of proportion, the coloring clashes with the background, and the overall level of detail is lacking compared to the previous issue. Issue number 2 is even worse, featuring a completely different art style and coloring. The characters look oddly simplified, resembling Milhouse from The Simpsons but without glasses. Issues 3 and 4 don't stand out much, resembling the earlier art styles without adding anything special. Oddly, the art in number 4 is signed, which feels unnecessary and out of place. Issue number 5 is frankly atrocious. The quality drops significantly with poorly executed lines, inconsistent coloring, and Pax looking nothing like her in-game counterpart. Issue number 6 improves slightly with the cool style and clean lines, but Eli looks unfinished, which detracts from the overall impact. Issue 7 looks nice, offering a return to a more polished and cohesive style. Issue number 8, however, is a disaster. The artwork looks less like a drawing and more like a beginner's Photoshop project. Additionally, Noam is wearing clown shoes for whatever reason. Issue number 9 shows Eli and Siggy looking cool and dynamic, but Pax ruins the scene. She's holding an officer but shows no emotion or struggle, making her appear disconnected from the rest of the action. Issue number 10 is visually striking but makes little sense in context. It depicts all the characters clashing, yet enemies are placed next to allies, and many of the characters shown are no longer part of the story at this point. It's also inconsistent with the rest of the covers, which at least attempted to tie into the narrative. The inside drawings, however, are mostly consistent and align more closely with the characters as depicted in the game. Ironically, these often look better than the covers, which is unusual since comic covers are typically designed to be more visually appealing than the interior content. The game features many scenes with strong cinematography, including a well-implemented feature that allows players to switch the camera to fixed cinematic angles. While the free camera movement remains available, these preset positions provide a dynamic way to view scenes without disrupting the flow of the conversations. This attention to visual presentation is one of the game's strongest points. The voice acting is a mixed bag, but this seems more a result of inconsistent direction than the actors' abilities. Despite the challenges, some performances stand out, especially like Pax's reflection scenes, which added depth to her character.
I wouldn't recommend it to everyone, but going through a life and death experience with your estranged sister is pretty cathartic.
And Sai's energy and enthusiasm in moments where she's excited or happy. These scenes showcase her at her best.
Everything that can go wrong has gone wrong.
Turn that frown upside down.
Shut your damn mouth, girl.
However, there are plenty of awkward line deliveries across the board, particularly in more serious or dramatic scenes, which feel like a result of poor direction rather than a lack of talent.
She'll be here soon. There's nowhere to go. You and your kind have already lost.
Oh. Shit.
I hope I didn't interrupt anything.
On the other hand, the animations are hit or miss. Most of the time, they work well, with characters facing the person who is talking or reacting with appropriate facial expressions. However, in other scenes, the animations fall into the uncanny valley, with characters feeling like puppets that never interact with the environment. They often look stiff, unnatural, or fail to react convincingly to the conversations. The band's songs were recorded in the legendary Abbey Road studio in London, with Dominic Tipper from The Expanse as the lead voice.
The singing was the most challenging part of this because, we went to Abbey Road to record the songs and I was just like, what am I doing in Abbey Road singing like, oh, the Beatles have been here, and here I am singing little weird songs from the Dustborn.
The soundtrack composed by Simon Poole is a mixed bag, with the band songs being the worst part of it. Dustborn is the name of their band, which is supposed to be punk rock, but their sound has nothing punk rock about them. Not the aesthetic, not the sound, not the attitude. The band has the following 4 songs. We Are the Dustborn has a good alternative rock sound, but the lyrics are just terrible, and the lead voice doesn't match the vibe of the music. Chasing Echoes reminds me of the first Evil X fight in Scott Pilgrim vs. the World.
We chase the ghosts in the mean machine.
If you want to fight me.
The Geek Grind is another song with terrible lyrics that have no message.
Gig grind. Looking for a better place. No more shortcomings, no more scams.
Finally, Influence Apocalypse has a much stronger delivery by Tipper with some good screams, and is probably their best song. In summary, their whole set is terrible, and the band would have been better off without vocals. The whole band aspect of the story, in my opinion, is one of the worst parts of the game. It just doesn't make any sense that these characters with no musical background will have their lives depend on passing as professional musicians on an international tour while playing some goofy toy-like instruments that they are learning to play on the go. It's just too unbelievable to take them seriously as a real band. While the band songs are bad, they only make up 6 minutes of the 70-minute soundtrack. In contrast, the background music tracks are solid and significantly help set the mood in different types of scenes. In general, the music is good, except for the 4 songs the band plays. There is a standout track though called Good Ways to Cry, performed by Charlotte Hatherley, which is in my opinion the best song on the soundtrack. It's unfortunate the band's music didn't follow this direction, because this style fits the characters better and is more in touch with the melancholy the story is trying to convey. Dustborn runs on the Unity engine, utilizing custom shaders to achieve its comic book aesthetic. During my playthroughs I experienced occasional frame rate drops and visual glitches, though these were rare. However, I encountered a more significant recurring bug that could disrupt the gameplay experience. The issue seems tied to accessing the menu while a companion is performing a specific event, causing it to cut off and fail to restart properly. In some cases, this halted story progression entirely, forcing a reload to continue.
Got a towel. This had better work.
The loading system is another area that needs improvement. Save points are inaccurately labeled, making it difficult to return to specific moments. For example, to start issue 8, you might need to load the end of issue 7, which just feels unintuitive and frustrating. A major frustration is the inability to skip scenes. At times the game forces you to unnecessary conversations to artificially advance the story. For instance, the Battle of the Bands event won't start until you have spoken to everybody in the room about trivial topics like advising them not to drink or discussing the triangle. These pacing issues suggest the game wasn't truly tested, especially since features like scene skipping have been industry standards for decades. On the positive side, the game offers a range of settings and options that include basic video and sound adjustments, a streamer mode, and a privacy mode that allows you to share your decisions with the developer's database, which also displays how many players made similar choices. Additionally, the subtitle options are robust, allowing customization of size, color, background, and font type. Despite these issues, the problems are relatively minor. I only had to reload a few times due to bugs halting story progression. The game was stable on my modest PC and I didn't experience any crashes. The developers appear committed to maintaining the game for now, with the latest patch released on December 13, 2024. They've also addressed some narrative gaps by adding new scenes in an effort to fix plot holes in the story, and recently expanded their demo, now featuring the first 2 chapters of the game. We're going to analyze the main characters for a bit in order to keep the story flowing once we deep dive into it. Pax is the central character in Dustborn, who is introduced as a con artist. This character choice may seem contentious, but it serves to establish her complex nature early on. Pax can be abrasive and manipulative, but the player choices can also reveal a softer, more compassionate side to her personality.
Rosa isn't here, Mom. She's in your heart. She's with us wherever we go.
Pax embarks on a journey seeking a better life in the unknown territories of Nova Scotia. She's grateful that her friends have joined on this perilous quest. Her unexpected reunion with her sister after a 16-year separation introduces significant tension as Pax attempts to mend their fractured relationship. Throughout the story, Pax is driven by a self-imposed mission to rescue as many anomalies as possible while navigating the treacherous path to Nova Scotia. This mission aligns with her overarching character arc, which centers on her struggle to become a better person. It also shows Pax's protective nature, as she's always worrying about the well-being of her friends, as well as being the main fighter of the group when problems arise. While Theo is the leader of the mission, both Theo and the rest of the characters look up to Pax when there is an important decision to make, as everyone knows she's the person holding the group together. Pax's journey is marked by her habitual use of her powers for personal gain, a tendency that causes inner conflict. She longs to wield her powers positively, but often resorts to manipulation to achieve her goals. This duality creates a compelling internal struggle that the player can explore throughout the game. Depending on your dialogue choices, you can also affect the course of the story of your companions. When and how you use your powers will affect the coda mechanics, giving them different endings based on your decisions.
You plan to disturb me?
Stop!
Her reflection scenes offer valuable insight into her psyche, allowing players to understand her motivations and the way she perceives the situations she encounters. These moments make it easier for players to relate to Pax and invest in her development as a character.
Whatever Nova Scotia's working on will affect all of us. Not just Ophelia and Sol. All anomals.
There's also the flashback scenes that dive a bit into her past, giving you snippets of some key plot points, like her childhood memories and the source of her powers. The reveal of her pregnancy is well written and it's foreshadowed from the start. Since she's keeping it a secret, it doesn't play much into the plot until the very end, but it's a great storytelling device as it shows who Pax is narrating the story to. Noam is introduced as Pax's ex, who serves as the love interest in the game. Noam's power, called gaslighting, allows convincing people with lies for various effects, including inducing positive feelings. Almost the opposite of Pax, Noam can also perceive when there's an anomaly nearby or sense people's emotions. This power is used constantly as a plot device to get the story moving. This is the main character you interact with the least, partly because Noam is always disinterested in helping with anything, making Noam feel detached from the crew.
To contribute?
What do you want me to do?
I don't know. Yeah.
When you do, I'll be right here.
There is little to be known except that Noam is trans, which is used throughout the game to showcase the use of they/them as neopronouns. Noam also expresses only really caring about Pax, and that being the main reason behind taking the journey. Noam is described as rich, coming from a wealthy family and being an entrepreneur with many businesses in Pacifica. Noam is also a cyborg who lost an arm and wears a mechanical one. The problem is that all these themes are just mentioned, but they're never explored. For example, it makes no sense for Noam to want to live 10 years of being an entrepreneur in Pacifica just to become involved in a suicide mission to steal critical information from a Puritan maximum security facility, a faction of cyborg beings obsessed with technology and weapons. It is explained that Noam feared being found as an anomaly as the main reason for leaving Pacifica. However, it's never explained why just buying a plane ticket to somewhere else wouldn't solve the situation. It could be that Noam is a scammer and being an entrepreneur was just a front, so this might just be an escape. But again, outside maybe 2 dialogue interactions in the whole game, this is never addressed.
This is embarrassing. I haven't been completely honest with you about why I left Pacifica. Or, you know, one of the reasons I needed to leave Pacifica. I made some terrible investments, made a mess of my business, lost everything. My partners, my ex-partners, they're angry, to say the least. Looking for me, certainly. Want to murder me, probably. It's water under the bridge at this point, but I feel awful.
Noam having a mechanical arm is never talked outside a single conversation about how the arm was lost. We never see people's reactions to meeting someone who wears what seems to be Puritan technology with whom the American Republic has conflicts. It's also not set up that being a cyborg is normalized within this society. It ends up as another theme that brings nothing to the story. With this game being so heavy loaded on social politics, I was expecting Noam to be more polished out, but instead is the weakest character of the main roster, proving that good characters are made of well-written traits that gives them depth and purpose to make them relatable. Despite being one of the most hated characters online, Sai is somewhat likable, although there are significant problems with how she was written, many secondary ideas behind her character work. She's well voice acted and brings a lot of energy in the scenes she's in. In the third act, her character falls apart due to inconsistencies in her timeline and motivations, which we'll discuss later. Sai is Pax's goofy friend who tags along because her life is a disaster and she has nothing to lose. She complains a lot and struggles with her fugitive status and crossing the divided stage with forged papers. The stress causes her panic attacks that Pax tries to handle the best she can, a dynamic that strengthens their friendship. Sai serves as the muscle archetype in the group. She can turn her skin to stone using her box, but she only uses it at the start of the game, stating that her powers become uncontrollable when she can't manage her emotions. Despite losing her nerves multiple times throughout the game, you never see her powers again in non-combat situations. Sai is the most diverse character on the roster. She's obese, Indian, wears glasses, has skin disease, has a criminal record, suffers from panic attacks, is a gamer, and is a Muslim. These characteristics are sometimes mentioned or referenced, but never meaningfully integrated into her character. For example, she frequently wears gaming t-shirts, hinting at her love for video games, but when the crew encounters multiple arcades during their journey, she never shows interest in playing or discussing them. Her most significant trait is her artistic skill, which is well tied to her backstory. She's always drawing and aspires to create a comic book. Noam and Sai share the same problem with their lack of depth. It's more evidently seen on Sai, as she has all these physical traits as if that was a replacement for developing the character within the story.
Back home. No partner, no pets, no loose threads.
This was a long con for you.
10 years undercover with the Puritans.
Theo's character is very straightforward. He needs to get to Nova Scotia for the mission, and he's only seeking help for his sister, who has problems controlling her powers. As the mastermind of the mission, Theo's primary goal is the mission's success, as his sister's well-being is at stake. Theo is the most reasonable member of the crew. Depending on how you play, he can either take the role of the leader or a friend. Within the game, Theo's character works the best as he's the only one who discusses the critical decisions with Pax. His pragmatic approach and logical thinking make him a central figure in decision-making processes. He also stands out for his valuable skills including hacking and lockpicking, making him exceptionally useful in the adventuring sections of the game. His calm demeanor and focus on the mission provide a balance to the more emotionally driven characters such as Pax and Sai. Theo's interactions often steer conversations towards practical solutions grounding the group's dynamic. Additionally, his relationship with Pax is built on mutual respect and trust, as they both share leadership responsibilities and lean on each other for support. Theo is probably the most relatable of all the main cast, as he's the only one with no powers. He also just wants to get the job done, and is not happy about all the shenanigans the rest of the party members constantly get into. Siggy is Pax's young sister. Although she starts being off very annoying, her behavior is justified because of her feelings of being abandoned by Pax 16 years ago. She quickly calms down after patching up her differences with Pax. The relationship is one of the best parts of the game, highlighted by their heartfelt conversations. She's also an anomaly who doesn't need to use her voice to activate her powers, which again breaks what has been established about Vox being about the power of words. She has the ability to move through space by vibrating, enabling her to pass through solid objects. This is a big deal as it can be dangerous, like the time when she lost her pinky finger to a wall due to carelessness when she was a child. I like this character and her dynamic with Pax. She's very naive, makes tantrums, has a hard time understanding life, and gets in love at first sight. The only problem is that she's 31, but she's written as a teenager's story of coming of age. Early in the game, she meets Eli, a young biker that joins the crew. She admits having a crush on him, and it's shown during multiple chapters, Siggy trying to get closer to him. I really like this part of the game, as the whole teenage love story was cute and gave a good relief from the more serious themes of the story. Sadly, the dynamic abruptly ends at some point with no conclusion. Now that we're set up with all the background around the game, the characters and the story, we'll deep dive into the plot and watch for ourselves if Dustborn is a good story-driven game or not. The story begins in the midst of a getaway with Pax and her crew being hunted by the Puritans as they escape from Pacifica. The scene opens with the characters arguing about something that has gone wrong with the plan. This is where we're introduced to our protagonist Pax and the rest of the main characters. We see Pax's powers in action when she tries to defuse the situation in the car. Her vocals allow her to magically infuse words to manipulate people's feelings or perceptions. Everyone expresses their discontent about Pax using their powers on them, except for Theo, who didn't notice anything. Theo had never met anomalies before and is unfamiliar with their powers, so the group explains to him what just happened. To explain Dustborn powers better, let's compare them to Dungeons & Dragons magic. Think of Pax and Noam as bards who cast mind-affecting spells. For example, her block power acts like a silence spell, causing everyone affected to stop talking. Noam's powers allow convincing people with lies for various effects, sometimes used for deception or diffusing a situation, similar to calm emotions or suggestion spells. Sai's power is different as she doesn't have vocal abilities. Instead, she can convert her skin into rock, which doesn't make any sense under the premise of the story of the power of words. I think the writers realized this early and decided that instead of rewriting everything, they will just remove anything involving her using powers. Because besides the opening scene, her powers are never referenced again. After a brief introduction and some minor interactions with the characters, the police start chasing the crew, and the players are given a double choice that leads to different scenarios, but the same outcome. They escape.
So dead! I'm not going to prison! I wasn't made for prison!
Step on it!
Do they even have Desies in Pacifica jails?
You're not going to prison.
Stop the car! We'll handle the cops.
Roll down your window.
What?
The window.
Oh, wait. The window. Okay, hold on. Hi! Hello! Hi, officer. What's going on?
I'll need you people to step out of the vehicle. Did you hear what I said? Step out of the vehicle. Do you people speak English? Habla español?
Si, senor. I mean, yes, sir. We do, sir. Sorry, sir.
Gnome? Some assistance?
Sir, we are complying with your orders. You can put that gun down.
What are you doing? Are you... I said, exit the vehicle.
Hey, officer, watch
Not
the
another
road.
word. I'm not warning you again. Get
Sir,
out.
please don't walk into the...
The story then flashes back to what happened 2 weeks ago when Pax and her group decided to take on this mission. The scene starts with Pax coming from the toilet, a recurring level in this game. The players get to explore Noam's house, revealing Noam to be a wealthy person who loves reading about JFK and Marilyn Monroe. It's also revealed that real fruit is expensive and unaffordable for common people, although this is never referenced again. After a lengthy discussion with Noam and Sai about embarking in the heist, everybody agrees to take on Theo's mission. The crew arrives at La Torre, a subterranean farming facility. They meet Luna, the first mission contact from Theo's plan. She's having an emergency, so Pax and the crew help her out. Noam and Sai use her powers to assist in the situation, while Theo also helps by using his tech skills. Pax has our second bathroom scene where she sees a vision of a Lebanon City sign, a creepy kid, and a red energy tree. She talks with Noam about how Sai seems very stressed. Luna heals Pax's gun wound with a machine called Doc, which is a breathing technology that regenerates tissue and can close a wound or injury in minutes. Pax explains to Luna about anomalies as she has never met one before. The crew learns that Luna is part of the Weave, an underground network of libraries that stretches across the divided states of America and act like trade posts for physical books. It's also revealed that the states controlled by Justice are under a dictatorship, but the president is stepping down and there are open elections coming up. Luna is convinced that Medina Castillo can win the upcoming elections against the dictator's son. It's unclear why this era of change towards democracy isn't a bigger deal, as it contradicts the loss of hope presented by the main characters. Police arrives at La Torre, and Pax is asked to gather the group to leave as soon as possible. She finds Sai panicking in the bathroom because of the siren, and Pax is forced to use her powers to make her react. This is one of my first big criticisms about the game design in Dustborn, because most of the time you're given an option to confront situations without using your powers, so when you're forced to use them, it just feels bad. I hated all the times I was forced to use Pax powers because they are mean, and using them on your friends just feels wrong. This is also why there are a lot of videos out there that hate Pax because you're forced to be an asshole a few times in the opening chapters, giving the perception that you're playing some kind of bullying girl boss, which is not really the case, as Pax can be nice most of the time. I think the writers should have made sure that Pax was relatable instead of unlikable, because when you mess with storytelling 101 and you break the rules without knowing what you're doing, then you get the Dustborn effect with people hating your main character and not wanting to play the game further. The cops leave and the crew prepares the final details before leaving. Pax finds out that their driver is a robot and she freaks out. She doesn't like them because they're immune to her powers. Theo explains that the plan initially included a human driver, but they have to settle for a robot because of the botched heist. I think this one aspect adds a bit of complexity to the usage of the box powers, and while it never matters on the story, it's a detail that helps on building the world setting. On the bus, Pax discusses with the group that there needs to be a deviation from the planned route to the north to pick up her sister. The crew expresses their disapproval of these last moment changes to the plan. Pax composes her first song and then she has a flashback. She meets a scientist who talks about her powers being based on proto-language stems that originated from the broadcast, an event that gave a few people these powers. It's revealed that this is the only recorded case of people gaining new powers. During the flashback, Pax starts hallucinating and gets teleported to a black and yellow dimension where she sees another sign of Lebanon City and a big tree of energy that rises up to the sky. Pax and the crew get detained by the police and use their cover story that they're banned on tour. In an unexpected turn of events, the police makes them perform for them. Regardless of the quality of their performance, they let Pax and the crew go. Later at the camp, they get attacked by the Horned Riders and the crew fights them and leave after beating them up. We arrive at Camp Liberty, where we can hear some cultish singing from the outside.
Do you guys hear singing?
I don't hear anything.
I hear it.
Pax tries to get in as nobody answers. As far as I know, there are different ways to get in, but I only tried the side entrance, resulting in Noam getting shot.
Nightmares?
Don't move! Gnome!
What do you want me to do?
Get that gun!
What?
Now! Grab the gun before she recovers!
Shit. I can't. She won't let go.
What are you doing?
Gnome!
Oh, God.
Move! I remember you. Fred. It's been a while. Now, please, let us in. You know me. You can trust me.
Trust you?
Will you be okay?
There's a weird vibe to this place. But I'll be fine. My arm's useless. It's not responding to input.
The damage doesn't look too bad. I'm sure we can fix it.
I didn't mean to... I wasn't gonna shoot.
Just shut up.
Regardless, both the scenarios end up with Noam just sitting on the same chair the whole chapter. After explaining that Pax grew up here, she is let in and meets Annie, one of her two moms who adopted her. Annie is mourning Pax's other mom and they reconnect after 16 years of separation. Pax discovers the camp has turned into an opium farm, and Annie explains that they grow it for medicinal purposes and because they needed the money. While looking for her sister, Pax goes back to her old place where she finds the jacket she used as a toddler that apparently still fits her as an adult. I don't think that's how clothes work, but whatever.
This thing doesn't fit.
I'm adjusting. Fit. She also finds a portable electronic device called a meme, which Pax reveals was the real reason she came, because it could ensure her financial future once they arrive in Nova Scotia. Pax finds her sister Siggy, who is upset with her for leaving all that time ago. There's a flashback that explains the echoes, which basically are bad sources of energy that can drive people mad. Here we learn that they can be created out of bad memories, as Pax removes one from her sister that was driving her literally insane. Pax finds that Camp Liberty's people have been infected by echoes too, which are driving the community to collapse. She uses the meme to heal the camp while explaining to Sai all about it. This is an excellent written scene where we as the player need to know this information, so Pax giving all the exposition to Sai works perfectly. We also see why Pax considers Sai her best friend, as she is very understanding about the whole situation. This is the first time we see the gigantic energy tree from Pax's dreams. It's been 16 years since Pax has seen it outside her dreams, but she doesn't reference it or talks about it. You would think seeing such a sight would make an impression, but instead, nothing happens. After cleansing the camp from the echoes that were making people hostile towards Annie, Justice attacks the camp, burning the poppy fields. Pax fights them while everybody abandons the camp. Annie tells Siggy that she must come with Pax. The band flees on the boss and continues its journey while Justice storms Liberty Camp. That's the last we see of this camp, which I found to be a very depressing place. A community of middle-aged, childless women fighting amongst themselves while trafficking drugs seemed like a terrible place to be, yet Siggy is reluctant to leave. I really don't understand what the message or the intention was, or what the writers were trying to convey with this place. The robot tells Pax and the crew they need to charge their super long-range electric bus at the upcoming service station, and that is going to take around 10 minutes. Clearly, there have been some big strides regarding battery technology in this dimension. The robot leaves them stranded at the station, so they need to find a way out. Just like in Camp Liberty, if you wake up Noam or not, it changes some scenes with Noam either staying on the bus sleeping or staying on the station doing nothing. Both paths ending with Noam sitting on the steps of the bus having the exact same conversations regardless of what happened. This is a problem I find with Noam constantly, that the character is written as if it's not there. In fact, if you remove Noam from the story, nothing really changes, which is part of the problem with Dustborn. Dustborn overall. There's too much fluff and not enough substance. Once at the station, there are a few options to get out of there. One is still in a truck, but your ability to get the crew to do it will depend on how they have developed their quotas. From my playthroughs, this one seemed to be the most consequential scene where the quotas actually played out, which is good game design. Too bad this feature isn't really implemented much afterwards. If you can steal the truck, Pax starts a fire to draw the bikers so they can steal their bikes. They realize it's the same gang that assaulted them last night, setting up the cartoonish tone where beating someone with a bat has no consequences. In my opinion, this didn't work out as it felt it lowered the stakes of the heist and being fugitives in a covert operation. This whole juxtaposition of modern day political commentary and the characters taking themselves seriously around a cartoon world just didn't work for me. The group steals their bikes and the bikers chase them to get their property back. Out of nowhere, Pax gets an unlimited amount of Molotov cocktails that she throws to defeat them. While different, this biking scene reminded me of Full Throttle. The band catches up with the boss and embarks on the mission of finding the robot, the only one with a license to drive the boss. They find themselves at an abandoned trailer park and notice that it looks like a movie set, as everything about the place seems fake. As they enter the property, they get jumped by an unstable man who has them at gunpoint, but Pax and Ziggy combine their powers to disarm him, revealing an echo driving him insane. Pax uses the meme to heal him from the echo. They discover there is a secret passage leading to an underground facility. Pax and Ziggy go down the elevator while Theo and Sai wait on top. They start exploring and discover that the facility is an abandoned school with disabled robots that used to work here. Delving deeper, they encounter the biker gang attacking a person who looks like a biker himself. Pax and Ziggy jump to help. This is where they meet Eli, who explains them that he was raised here as a kid, that this was a facility where they experimented on children to artificially awaken their powers, and that he is looking for his long-lost friend from this place. Eli is another character who, despite being young, appears to be much younger than he is, and seems more mature than Ziggy but still around the same age. I feel like their ages seem unnatural and could have been easily adjusted by changing some minor details in their backstories. Ziggy and Pax have a bonding experience throughout this whole adventure, during which they patch up their differences with some nice dialogues that show their sibling dynamic. While crossing a rusted beam, Ziggy falls into a room and panics due to her claustrophobia. Pax talks to her and calms her down, then encourages Ziggy to use her powers to move across a wall, since there's no other way out. Ziggy is traumatized from losing a finger this way when she was a child, but decides to trust Pax and escapes with her help. They continue looking around and realize that the robots are activating again and start attacking the group. This isn't explained as the robots were supposed to be for childcare and not combat. Initially, the robots appeared to have run out of batteries while doing their daily tasks and were abandoned rather than disabled. Despite this setup, the robots start moving again, disappearing before attacking anything in sight. There's never an explanation for all this plot point. The group finally finds the robot, who explains that this is where they forcibly awaken children's powers. The robot explains that it took the boss because the proximity of the facility activated a hidden protocol inside it that made it come to this room. As with the kids, the machine awakened the robot, implying it became sentient. Pax notices that she can now use her powers on the robot as if a human. The robot tells Pax its name is Caretaker, who used to look after Eli and many other children when the building was operational. They'll leave the underground facilities and regroup at the surface to realize that Noam and Theo have been captured. Pax fights the bikers until Eli stops the fight, revealing that the leader of the biker gang is Eli's ex-girlfriend. This leads to the realization that it's all a misunderstanding. After making peace, Pax can decide if they should give them a concert or not. Pax and the crew arrive at Betty's diner. As everyone sits on the table, Pax orders, and the Betty robot detects that Pax is pregnant and she asks it to keep it secret. This is a big reveal, as it's been properly set up since the start that she might be talking to her kid when narrating the story, and also explains the bedroom scenes. This is also one of the game's most glaring narrative missteps, because Noam is an androgynous character whose lack of development and biological ambiguity creates significant confusion in the story. The reveal that Pax is pregnant could have been a dramatic and emotionally charged moment, but instead raises more questions than it answers. Like, who's the father? Does Pax know? Can Noam even be the father? The story never clarifies, undermining the emotional stakes of what could have been a compelling love triangle or paternity subplot. Creative choices should not come at the expense of narrative clarity or character depth. In Dustborn, this lack of detail detracts from the story, turning what could have been a compelling narrative into a frustrating exercise in unanswered questions.
Oh, I wish I could talk to him. Your dad? He'd know how to listen to you, understand you. I know he can't wait to hear your voice, kid. And not just because he's a linguist.
While in the restaurant, Pax is given the opportunity to spy on Theo, a moment that should carry significant weight as it represents a breach of trust. However, this choice ultimately feels hollow, as the story progresses the same way regardless of the player's decision, and the details are revealed later anyway. While this might not be entirely evident at first, it's indicative of a broader issue. Many scenes in the game like this one feel pointless, adding little to the plot or character development and instead contributing to unnecessary bloat. We get another bathroom scene that adds nothing to the story. All it does is give you the option to wash your face. Then Pax drops the mission package and the game forces you to pick it up before you can do anything else. Why is this even here? Is it to show that Pax is clumsy? Or maybe it's a not so subtle reminder to the player that, oh yeah, there's actually a plot happening. To me, this feels like the Call of Duty press F to pay respects meme all over again. A moment of forced interactivity that adds nothing meaningful to the experience that could have been replaced by a simple cutscene. As Pax goes back to her table, she's stopped by a couple of justice officers who start questioning her. This scene feels off. It's hard to pinpoint exactly why this is. For example, the officers start questioning with disinterest and start chatting between themselves about nonsense. At this point, you should get a chance to go back to your table. It's a restaurant after all, and you're not under arrest, but instead the game forces you to stay and listen to them, resulting in more problems. This is the scene that many content creators reacted to capitalize on hating this game for clicks.
The black kid dresses like a writer. Does he know anything?
You are racist.
To be fair, it's a pretty funny video, the problem being that it's out of context and it's edited for comedic value. In reality, the scene plays out differently if you're paying attention to the plot.
We're actually out here because there's been reports of deviant activity.
Deviants associating with anarchists and biker gangs.
Those animals burned down a service station near Elko. So we're patrolling and checking with travelers if they've seen anything suspicious on the road.
Like deviant mind tricks?
Or maybe just something that didn't look right. People who didn't look right.
Perhaps at one of your gigs. Maybe you've seen something that caught your attention?
That other fella you're with, the black kid, dresses like a writer. Does he know anything?
He your brother or cousin? Boyfriend?
Hey, that's a bit racist.
Is it? I don't know about that.
The training? I don't know, didn't they say something about... Anyway.
Pax is trying to lay low, so using her powers unnecessarily will only create problems for her. While the scene has different endings, your choices only change some minor details and don't affect the story overall.
It's all good, officers. Just a misunderstanding. My friend's here, she's from Pacifica. You know how it is in Pacifica. People are sensitive to language. Cancel culture, you know.
Oh, yeah.
That's right.
She thought you were talking about racial stereotypes. Minorities? Not, real monsters.
No!
No, we're not racist.
Justice is all about diversity.
And inclusion.
After leaving the diner, the crew discusses the importance of sticking to the plan undercover. Later, they arrive at an abandoned mall where they meet their contact Lottie and her raccoon pet. The crew relaxes and takes the opportunity to rest. There's some good scenes with Eli and Siggy having fun, and Caretaker exploring her identity as a new sentient being. This falls within the theme of the game and feels well written. We also get a very weird scene that left me confused, in which Noam sings Happy Birthday to the raccoon called Mr. President, reminiscent of Marilyn Monroe singing to JF Kennedy.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Mr. President. Happy birthday to you.
After the celebration, Theo and Pax notice that Lottie has a Puritan computer that could decrypt the packaged contents to see what information they're carrying.
Are you thinking what I'm thinking? Modern hardware with proprietary P-grade ports.
Our employers have been extremely clear. We just carry the cargo. We don't do anything else with it.
I get that, but we're on our own in enemy territory, and now there's an opportunity
Did you say dinner's ready? Let's go.
The problem with the plot up to here is that the crew has never expressed any curiosity about the packaged contents up to this point. There's no indication that they're in danger, no interactions with the Puritans since the heist, no sign of being pursued, and no sense of urgency to uncover what they're carrying. This lack of setup makes their sudden interest in decrypting the package feel forced.
I couldn't sleep. I think I'm having a crisis of faith, Pax. Ever since you mentioned the cargo again. Time and again, we've been caught unaware by a lack of information. We didn't know about the robot's past and it hijacked the bus. What if we find ourselves in a situation where knowing what we're transporting could save our lives?
You'll expect this moment to be a significant turning point in the game, where the player must decide whether to jeopardize the mission by decrypting the package or not. However, any sense of agency is stripped away when Pax uses her powers to forcibly convince Theo regardless of the player's input.
Stop being weak. You want to let some weird shadow corporation dictate your actions? Or do you want to take a stand and find out what you're risking your life over?
I'm not scared. You're right. There's no point wasting the night with a crisis of faith, when we can do something about it. Let's go, Pax. Let's do this.
This is one of the most glaring examples of the game's largest flaws, the illusion of choice. Players are given the pretense of decision-making, but the narrative railroads them into a predetermined path, effectively reducing them to passive observers. This lack of meaningful choice undermines the game's potential for player engagement and makes the experience feel more like a guided tour than an interactive story.
Looking at here, Theo?
Data. I mean, more like a database. It's a massive archive, but I don't know what this...
Pax and Theo use the package in the computer only to find out the data is encrypted and they can't do anything with it. This triggers an alarm that lets their enemies pinpoint their location for the first time since the heist. We finally meet the Puritans, the cyber faction from Pacifica. After a long exposition scene that doesn't really explain anything, we learn that the Puritans want to cure the disinformation disease and want their package back. Pax defends the crew but finds out that Puritans have an energy shield that makes them immune to damage. Then Theo uses an EMP device that removes their invulnerability, allowing them to escape.
Well, you just played your one card, and we brought more resources.
Adjunct, I've been informed that local law enforcement is approaching. You need to leave now. We can't afford to be exposed.
This is our chance. We need to go.
We found you once. We'll find you again.
We will use deadly force if necessary.
I'd say it's been a pleasure, but you're the reason I'm going into hiding.
We're sorry about the library.
Lottie's not happy about our protagonist exposing her hideout and basically ruining her life, which mirrors exactly what happened at Camp Liberty just days ago. After resting, the band plays again as planned. Dom alerts the crew of an anomaly near the tourist facility and insists on stopping the boss to investigate. Despite the presence of 2 justice trucks parked outside, a clear sign of danger, the crew debates whether it's worth risking the mission, with Theo being particularly hesitant. However, the game gives the player no real choice in the matter, forcing you to investigate regardless. Pax encounters a couple of elderly tourists who inform her that the building is closed, but she continues exploring regardless. Soon after, she stumbles upon a little girl being attacked by justice officers. The girl displays extraordinary magical powers, effortlessly throwing one of her attackers off a cliff without uttering a word. While this moment is visually striking and introduces an intriguing element to the story, it raises questions about the game's internal logic. Why does the girl possess such powerful abilities, and how do they fit in the world's established rules of the power of words? The scene culminates in a fight with the officers as the girl escapes. Pax encounters the elderly couple attempting to force their way into the museum. Turn of events that feels jarring and nonsensical. Why would an elderly couple on vacation abandon their food and suddenly resort to vandalism? This moment not only strains believability, but also undermines any sense of logic. Pax eventually finds the girl and notices that has the same tattoos as Eli, implying she was also an anomaly produced artificially by Justice. The girl is visibly terrified, and the meme reveals numerous echoes surrounding her. Pax clears the echoes, but the girl remains distrustful of Pax and the crew. In an attempt to calm her, Pax uses her new box power Normalize, which has a positive effect on the girl, a stark contrast to the typically negative consequences of her other abilities. Interestingly, this power mirrors Noam's ability, which seems like a significant development. However, Pax never comments on this similarity, and the power's effect is inconsistent in future uses.
They're actually doing fine. Everybody's ready to leave now, so just come out.
Okay.
This feeling is normal.
Yes, it fucking is. And that makes it worse.
As the group prepares to leave, they find out that Justice is apprehending the elderly couple who were trying to forcefully enter the tourist facilities. This scene aims to portray the authoritarian regime, but in my opinion, it fails because it's not set up properly. There were 2 justice trucks stationed since Pax and the crew arrived, and the officers were clearly there to apprehend the dangerous little girl, who had already killed one of them. While their aggressiveness is questionable, it is the elderly couple's fault for attempting to commit a crime in front of a bunch of officers. After departing from the tourist attraction, the group stops at another service station, and Pax gets her 4th bathroom scene. While leaving, they encounter 2 justice officers asking the robot attendant for directions, as they're investigating the incidents from the tourist facility and they're looking to capture the anomalies responsible for them. The crew arrives at the new contact destination, a motel that secretly holds another library from the Weave. They look around for people, but they're unable to find anyone. After forcing down several doors, they find a reinforced one that resists Siggy's abilities.
Oh man, it's too dense.
So they go back and locate the keys. Siggy overcomes her fear of using her powers to pass through solid objects and opens the administration office.
Way ahead of you.
They open the motel's door, but as they open, their contact shoots Sai with a shotgun. We assume Sai is injured because of the gunshot sound, as there's no visible blood or injury and the characters fail to convey any emotions. This for me is also a moment where the tone of this game falls flat. One of the main characters just got shot at point blank, and the scene is too tame with no blood and nobody reacting properly. Scenes like this make me wonder what was the purpose of this game, because it tries to create commentary around controversial political issues but then auto-censors itself to be PG-16, never defining if it wants to be a serious game or not. The shooter immediately apologizes and heals her with his box power, which cures wounds with poetry. Introducing himself as Soul, he informs Pax and the crew that Justice is shutting down libraries around the divided states and they must leave immediately. This type of storytelling reminds me of The Last Jedi, where Leia gets thrown into the vacuum of outer space just to magically come back with no consequences. Another example of a scene where nothing really happens. Pax is tasked with bringing Soul's favorite plant, a moment that is framed as a puzzle but offers no hints or meaningful challenge, reducing it to little more than a plot device to move the story forward. Shortly after, when Pax attempts to reunite with the crew, she encounters the officers from the previous station, who have grown suspicious of her. Their interrogation builds tension, but just as it reaches its peak, Sol's room inexplicably explodes, creating a distraction that allows Pax to escape. The group enters the Great Plains Exclusion Zone, the place where the broadcast first happened and the source of Pax's dreams. I must say this is the most original and coolest setting in the game, the place where all anomal powers came from. It looks as if it's in a perpetual sandstorm, and the visibility is very low. Theo calls the place the Ashes. Everyone on the bus is telling horror stories, which really helps bring up the mood of creepiness and desolation. The boss hits something on the road, but when Pax goes to check, there's nothing there. The girl runs out and disappears, so Pax and Eli go after her. They notice that there's a justice base in this zone, as well as some larger mechanical creatures. After some exploration, they arrive at yet another Betty's diner, where they find the girl with a strange person who apparently can read her thoughts. She explains that the girl says it's very important they go find the tree. Justice arrives at Betty's and the mysterious figure attacks the Justice members, showing off her box power inflicts pain. After defeating the officers, they run off to investigate the Whispering Tree. Pax feels this must not be a coincidence and decides to get to the bottom of the meaning of her dreams. After fighting what seems to be cyborg gorillas, they arrive at a justice facility which seems to be the source of the original broadcast. Atop the tower, they find a giant squid like the ones we encountered before that fed off echoes.
What is that? That's a demon.
It's more like a giant octopus to me. A building-sized octopus.
Farther in, some justice officers attack the crew, but the cyborg apes come to the rescue, signaling that the giant squid controls them and that it's on their side.
Get off me! Watch out! It's hurting them, not us.
You're right. It's on our side.
Pax doesn't know how to communicate with it, so she decides they should play a song using Eli's illusion box. The strategy works and the gorillas escort them into the tower building. I find this scene too silly and mismatched to the setting. Kind of makes sense to try to communicate using powers by playing music, as it's part of the story's premise. The execution is bad though, as none of the band members are present. It would have made more sense if they were all here and Eli used his illusion to help the band perform, powered with box, making all the previous practices culminate in this show that reveals the origins of their own powers.
They're not attacking, just watching. Protecting the tree.
Is that it?
I believe so. Come on, let's follow her. What are you doing?
Once inside, Pax touches the tree and enters a flashback, meeting her biological mother, who explains that Pax was meant to control this power with her meme to shape the echoes into the new power words. There is a mention of a war coming not around power or control, but around the nature of reality itself. Whatever that means, it's never referenced again. The narrative around Pax seems flawed to me, as she was left as an orphan, unable to care of this important machinery that will determine the fate of the world. It's also never explained why there are cyborgs that use Puritan technology in a facility protected by justice. The plot here is revealed to be just a bunch of ideas put together without any thought.
What happened?
The voices are gone.
Guys, look at the tree. It's not glowing anymore.
What did you do?
Nothing. I don't know. I just reached out and...
Eli?
After Pax's flashback, the echoes around the mysterious character clear, revealing Ophelia, Eli's long-lost friend. The echo infection clouded her thoughts, making it impossible to recognize Eli or reality. After an eventful exit from the facility, the crew leaves the Forbidden Zone. This is where the game falls apart in my opinion, because nothing of consequence happens after that which couldn't have been resolved here. The problem is that Pax's journey is more about finding herself than the main mission. When she discovers the meaning of her dreams and the source of her powers, the story loses tension. At the same time, we leave the most interesting setting in exchange for a bunch of mundane ones that we will get to soon. The boss breaks down due to mechanical issues, forcing the group to stop for repairs. They arrive at an abandoned farm and decide to take shelter in a nearby house. This section plays like a classic adventure puzzle where you interact with objects in a logical way to solve a problem. It's a welcome change of pace, and the game could have benefited from more of this type of gameplay throughout. However, this chapter highlights even more inconsistencies in Dustborn's world building.
I used to dream of living on a farm like this. Establishing a small commune, planting crops. Shame the soil's gone to shit.
Sol explains that the farmland is spoiled, which is why the farms are abandoned, but since leaving Pacifica, everything has already seemed desolate, almost post-apocalyptic. Yet the group travels on an electric bus and never struggles with power or fresh food, despite agriculture supposedly failing. The disconnect between the characters and the world is also evident here. This is the first time the Whispering Tree is no longer visible since Pax touched it on the Forbidden Zone. Instead, a massive storm made of echo energy looms on the horizon, seemingly dangerous, yet Pax never acknowledges it. The game's ideas aren't conveyed naturally through the world or characters. Instead, they rely on exposition that never pays off. Rather than immersing the player in the divided states of America through compelling locations, Dustborn keeps its setting vague and uninspired, making it difficult to grasp the true stakes of the journey. Once Pax opens the house for everyone to enter, Ophelia loses control of her powers, sparking a discussion about whether she should be left behind for the safety of the group. Theo asks Pax to talk to everyone, but despite the various dialogue options, the outcome remains the same. Even if Pax insists that Ophelia should leave, she ultimately stays, making the whole section feel pointless. There's a humorous moment where Pax tries to use her box on site to cheer her up.
Let me help.
How?
Be happy.
Ow! Bitch, I'm working on it, okay?
Cheer up.
Oh, that's the worst pep talk I've ever had. Pretty triggering, man.
You're happy.
That's the stupidest thing you've said all day.
You feel good.
What? No, I fucking don't. Stop this shit.
I'm trying here.
Try less.
Come on, smile.
What? Who are you?
Don't be sad.
A little too late for that. Wait, what are you trying to do?
This feeling is normal.
Yes, it fucking is. And that makes it worse.
I'm sorry. I'll drop it.
What was that all about?
But it doesn't work. The issue is that even normalize, a box that was just used positively not long ago, also fails, further highlighting inconsistencies in the writing. The little girl calls for Pax to catch a bulk of echoes from the storm, seeming to have knowledge of Pax's powers and her ability to absorb them, unlocking a powerful new box called Control.
Well, that felt different. I hope we're doing the right thing, kid. Wake up. Did you feel that, kid? That felt weird. Hear me! I'm not doing it right. Listen to me! That's not it. Let there be... No. Give me control.
Pax later wakes up to find the girl listening to the baby, implying she can listen to the baby's powers. There's an optional hide-and-seek minigame where Pax can search for the other characters around the farm. Everyone gathers for dinner and Eli pushes for details about the heist, which is presented through a turn-based minigame. Sai, for no apparent reason, lashes out at Pax and runs off. This reaction feels abrupt, though there was some foreshadowing. Sai previously wanted to tell Pax something important back at the camp, and Noam commented that something seemed off with her since last night. The group searches for Sai, but she's nowhere to be found. Unable to wait any longer, they're forced to leave without her. The group dresses up in some silly outfits for the Battle of the Bands and heads into the city to meet their next contact. Along the way, Pax notices that many citizens are afflicted by echoes, but helping them is completely optional and irrelevant to the plot. There's also a random fourth wall breaking scene.
What the hell? Why did I say those stupid things? I have a medical degree. There's no woke mind virus.
Pax encounters a vagrant anomal who she can try to recruit, but he refuses to join no matter what. They find a bar where they're booked to perform, but inexplicably the bouncers won't let them in, even though they're part of the main event. The group is forced to use their powers to convince them. Once inside, they realize the entire bar is packed with uniformed justice officers. Despite this, they stick around, wait for their contact and perform as planned. Throughout the game, the crew constantly complains about being broke.
Spent my last Republic dollar on decades-old soda. Worth it.
How about giving it a good rattle for a thirsty friend?
That's theft, Pax. You're better than that.
Besides, those things last forever. And now I'm out of change.
Also, my wallet's on the bus. We have no cash.
How do 3 men in their 30s not have $800 between them?
The economy is in shambles right taking close look at the market.
Apparently, this ragtag group of middle-aged adults can't scrape together a few bucks. Despite Noam supposedly being rich, it's also never explained how they managed to pay for restaurant meals or the energy for their vehicle. The reason this stands out is because there's a 2,000 credit price advertised for the Battle of the Bands, yet the characters never acknowledge it even if they win. The more attention you pay to these details, the worse the game's logic falls apart.
That's right. That's my band, y'all. Dustborn.
After their performance, Eli gets free booze and everyone except Pax gets drunk, with no option for the player to intervene. This means the crew is voluntarily partying in a room full of what are supposed to be fascist law enforcement officers. Eventually, Theo informs Pax that their contact won't be coming and that the meeting location has changed. The party scene has a lot of hard and funny moments, but it doesn't make much sense within the story. First, you never see any other band members or performances during this so-called Battle of the Bands. Second, the bar is full of law enforcement officers celebrating someone's retirement. So, which is it? A Battle of the Bands or a private retirement party? Third, why will a group of fugitives choose to party in a bar full of the very people they are trying to avoid? As everyone leaves, Pax tries to convince Noam to go, but Noam refuses, too busy flirting with the bartender. This scene is bizarre because it plays out the same way regardless of whether the player romance Noam or not, completely disregarding player choice and undermining the game's romance mechanics.
Finally! What were you guys doing in there?
We were...
Nothing.
Nothing. I wouldn't call it nothing, but that's just me. I'm old-fashioned like that.
Hard to get up when you're spooning.
Be honest. You can't stand that I'm interested in spending time with anyone else.
I'm trying to get over you, all right? It hasn't been easy, and you refuse to make it any easier.
Eventually, Pax convinces Noam to leave, but on their way out, they're stopped by the same justice officers from the motel. No matter how the conversation goes, Pax and Noam are forced to run. While escaping, the vagrant anomal from earlier goes Nova, seemingly sacrificing himself to help them escape. Why he does this is never explained. Even worse, the same officers show up later as if nothing happened, rendering his sacrifice and the entire scene pointless. The crew then escapes via subway in shock about what just happened. The band arrives at their new contact location in Roadtown, yet another abandoned place. This time it's a factory where robots were once produced. Strangely, the game never explains why production stopped, despite these machines still running essential services like diners and service stations. Everyone is in a bad mood after the vagrant's supposed sacrifice the night before. Pax and Theo head deeper into the factory to meet their new contact, Desmond. He was supposed to show up at the bar but bailed when their cover was compromised by the justice officers. Despite what happened, Pax is still annoyed that Desmond didn't take the risk of meeting them there, which feels oddly self-centered given the circumstances. We also meet Nine, another anomal who needs help getting to Nova Scotia. Introducing a new character this late into the game feels exhausting, especially when they exist more to check a box than to meaningfully contribute to the plot. Also, she's introduced as a gilf, which really makes me question the intended tone of this game. After an oddly long conversation about allergies that adds nothing to the story, Desmond finally explains his plan. He'll smuggle the group across the border in a truck behind the factory. With that settled, Pax and Theo head back to get the others. As they head out, they're ambushed by Justice, and once again, everyone is captured except for Pax.
Keep your mouths shut or those snipers will fire.
City crashes the boss into the barricade to create a distraction, giving Pax a chance to fight back. A series of combat encounters follow as the anomals try to regroup. Predator Walker comes back to confront Pax, and City joins the fight along with some robots as backup. During the fight, Pax is grabbed by Predator Walker and demands to know why he is after them. His response is surprisingly reasonable.
Enough! You've left a trail of destruction behind you. Dead soldiers, some of them
You
just
could have
hid.
just left us alone.
You and your kind are a danger to our society.
At this point, depending on your choices, the group has been involved in a hit-and-run accident. Caught at an illegal opium-producing camp, committed arson at the service station, provoked an accident with 2 officers, and destroyed private property.
He has no respect for you. The man just insulted you in front of civilians. Are you going to let that pass?
She's right. You always try to assert yourself around me. And your mansplaining is really starting to piss me off.
What are you talking about? All I do is keep you from making a fool of yourself. You should be thanking me.
Oh, I'm the fool? Me? You think that? Who's the fucking fool now, bitch?
You want to do this?
Don't fucking try me.
Oh, I will try you.
Ah, jeez. This is a Code Red incident. I gotta contact the authorities immediately.
Wait! Code Red? What does that
mean? Means more justices.
I'm sorry, but I can't lie to those officers. It's against my programming. And even if I could lie, they'd still be able to search my memories. However, if I run a self-destruct program, my data will be completely wiped. Would you like me to do that instead?
You'll have to self-destruct, Betty.
Just give me 1 second here and I'll just... Oh!
Bomb a motel, trespass on a secret research facility,
Oh shit!
caused an international conflict between Pacifica and the American Republic by making the Puritan soldiers invade Justice territory in pursuit of them, caused a person to Nova, and are actively protecting the little girl who killed an officer by pushing him off a cliff in the mountains. So yeah, Predator Walker has a point. Pax and Eli combine their bugs using Pax's new power control, leading to a pretty cool scene where Bituman, the asphalt god, wreaks havoc on Justice forces, allowing Pax to escape.
The size of a skyscraper.
Hell yeah!
Prefect Kim tackles her and stabs her in the belly, only to then not finish the job, instead opting to wait for a train to hit her. Why stab her at all if you're just going to wait around? To make things worse, the train moves comically slow, making the entire scene feel unintentionally hilarious rather than tense. Deus Ex Machina CT pushes Prefect Kim aside and throws Pax off the railroad tracks, self-sacrificing in the process. Though it feels unnecessary, as there was clearly enough time to just move out of the way. Siggy and Eli arrive to help Pax, but in a moment straight out of Palpatine telling Anakin to leave Obi-Wan behind.
Oh no! CT! Come on, Z. You can't do anything for them.
Leave him or we'll never make it.
Eli tells Siggy to forget about CT and focus on Pax. This feels out of character for Siggy, the group's mechanic, who doesn't even attempt to repair CT. At the very least, they could have taken the robot's head. The chapter ends with Sol using his box powers to heal Pax as everybody flees the scene.
It's becoming clear that our great nation needs a leader who embodies all of our values. Diversity, inclusion, strength, resilience, and most of all, hope.
Pax wakes up in the hospital, held by Predator Walker and Prefect Kim. The chapter opens with an announcement from the official government emphasizing their support for DEI and inclusivity initiatives and endorsing Medilla Castillo, the opposition for the next democratic elections that wants to demilitarize the country. All this is contradictory to a fascist regime and shows once again the lack of consistency in Dustborn's writing. It's also a perfect example of the game's unapologetic stance on the studio's personal politics, which sparked the whole controversy surrounding it. We are told that they're using a new drug to suppress illegal language that nullifies Pax's ability to use her powers. Walker knows Kim tried to commit murder on a pregnant woman, but they act like it's nothing. They sort of apologize, but not really. Predator Walker then explains Pax that he means no harm, but that too many people have died already by Pax's actions, and that it's their responsibility to put a stop to them even if he knows they are not monsters. Pax counter-arguments that Justice is still experimenting on kids on facilities like where Eli was raised, and that Justice's intentions are about helping themselves by weaponizing anomalies. Predator Walker doesn't believe what Pax is saying, but they are interrupted by an attack by Puritan forces. If you're wondering how we got here, then you're feeling the same as everybody else who got to this point in the game. The scenes are so disjointed that it feels like you skipped the whole chapter. Not only were you captured and shackled, but you were also freed by your captors in the same scene. As Pax tries to escape the hospital, Siggy, Eli, and Sai rescue her. How or why Pax was captured is never explained. Once they escape, Sai reveals she's been a traitor all along and lives with Sol to help the Weave as a double agent. There's a bunch of scene transitions as the group keeps traveling towards Nova Scotia. There are a few cinematic scenes that also keep bringing new themes into the game, like some abandoned oceanic power plants. There's a final diner scene with what's left of the group, where the writers tried to set up a Remember the Good Times feeling with everyone singing along. The problem is that it just doesn't fit in the timeline, as Pax has just been stabbed and captured, Sad betrayed the group, Sol left, and CT is dead. To add insult to injury, Pax wears a t-shirt that says "That's all folks," a direct reference to the ending of Looney Tunes cartoons.
Easy. And I know you pulled it off last time for good reason. We were stuck in our old patterns, bickering.
This choice feels jarring and out of place, highlighting the game's total inconsistency. Dustborn wants to be taken seriously as a narrative-driven experience, yet moments like this undermine its credibility and create a disconnect between the story's intent and its execution. After another disjointed scene, the group is separated and gets ambushed by the Puritans. But this time, Predator Walker drops from the sky and helps Pax escape. He has found out that Justice has indeed been lying about the experiments on kids. He warns them that they must leave as fast as possible, and the crew runs to shore. As they arrive at the docks, they find the Overseer, who has captured the group yet again. Remember her? The hologram that appeared for a few seconds in the mall? Well, she's back to be the last enemy and the climax of the game. She reveals that the information they're carrying can help uncover the secrets of the proto-language and that they're receiving help from the Herald, a child-like figure next to her that she apparently knows nothing about. It's all a bunch of gibberish because nothing about the plot is ever explained except that they have been carrying a codex, but it's also explained that they don't need the data, they just don't want it leaked. The whole exposition just raises more questions like, who is this child-like creature? If the crew has been carrying information, why didn't they just upload it to the internet? They have long-range EV buses that travel thousands of miles that charge in 10 minutes and a whole generation of human-like robots, but there's no internet? It just doesn't make any sense.
The hatchets, wait a minute, if the arrow hit him in the heart, then that's his Achilles heel to kill him. Why would she throw hatchets at him? That doesn't make any sense, does it, Rich? It doesn't make any sense.
In a true bad showdown style, everybody just stares at each other while Pax talks to her crew for minutes, as if they are in immediate danger, giving them personalized pep talks based on their quotas. Despite this situation, there is no urgency, just a long-winded motivational speech in the middle of a standoff. This somehow gives Theo the courage to take the EMP device from his pocket and activate it.
History books will agree with me and...
After they defeat the Overseer, Theo immediately tells Pax that if something goes wrong with the mission, she must let his family know about Nova Scotia to save her sister. And then, in possibly the most baffling decision of the entire game, Theo, the smartest of the group and the only one with no powers, casually sprints after the mysterious child-like entity, despite knowing nothing about it, tries to attack it, and gets instantly disintegrated.
No, Christ.
Pax and the girl then use their power to amplify the baby's power, who sends the entity flying away until it disappears.
Pax? What? What?
The remaining characters decide depending on their quotas if they're coming to Nova Scotia or not, and then the game ends. For real, we never get to our destination. There's a post-credit scene where the robots take CT's head into what seems to be the heart of the old factory, where it looks like the robots are making CT their new god. This is the only coherent part of the ending, as it at least resonates with CT's conversation with Noams during the picnic, and it also sets up a sequel.
Eventually, my parts will wear out. Even if I outlive other humans. Who will repair me if I break down?
Other robots?
Only if I can control them and instruct them. I'm not sure humans will take kindly to me doing that.
Fuck them. I don't mind bowing down to our robot overlords. Can't be any worse than our current leaders.
I'll keep your sage advice in mind, Gnome.
See? Sage advice.
Being a story-driven game, the writing is one of the most important aspects, and sadly, this is where Dustborn is the weakest, especially towards the end. It gives the impression that the game was rushed out with many story elements left unfinished. Even when the story is more refined, many character-related decisions show a lack of understanding of what makes this type of games work. For example, let's start with Pax, our protagonist, who is introduced as a con artist using her powers to rob people. The plot establishes that she starts with only two power words, block and push, but in the comic prelude, she uses hoax, a power acquired much later in the game, showing a lack of continuity from the get-go. To add to the problem, the main objective, Pax's journey to become a better person, is never clearly explained. Her character arc revolves around personal growth, with the game mechanics reinforcing this, but you only realize it near the end of the game when you get the companion scores. This was a common issue highlighted in early video reviews of Dustborn, as most people think you need to respond as quickly as possible, making Pax interrupt others or using her powers on her friends, not knowing that just listening brings the best outcomes. This directly affects the player experience if they cannot connect with the character driving the plot, potentially causing them to stop playing. Pax should have been more relatable by default. Instead of introducing her as someone who robs people and then parties with the money without remorse, the writers could have given her more sympathetic struggles, like working a dead-end job and using her pregnancy as a motivation to turn her life around. When you pay attention to the details in Dustborn, many elements feel like they were taken from an early draft rather than polished script from a professional studio. It's possible that development issues led to major cuts, but regardless, setting up a story about the power of words only to introduce characters with abilities that don't require words highlight a fundamental lack of narrative cohesion.
All of these characters that have these powers based on language are sort of literal powers. So, like, for example, Sai can use language to turn herself into stone.
The world building is also underdeveloped. The game hints at intriguing ideas but never explores them, while continuously introducing new themes right up until the final moments. For example, the mission map shows that many coastal regions have been submerged and that Kansas is now engulfed in a permanent dust storm. But that's all we learn. How did this happen? Is it related to the country's separation? By the time the credits roll, the game has left so many unanswered questions that you have already stopped caring. While the writing bears some responsibility for the game issues, it's not the sole culprit. Dustborn suffers from a lack of focus, diluting its potential in a sea of underdeveloped ideas and unresolved plotlines. There are aspects I enjoyed, such as some of the witty banter and dialogues. However, the game's structural problems and the scattered narrative hold it back from telling a compelling story. In my opinion, the game should have opened with the heist, immediately showcasing the characters' abilities, personalities, and dynamics through action and dialogue. This would also be the perfect opportunity to introduce the main antagonist, setting up the stakes and conflict for the rest of the adventure. The Justice faction feels unnecessary and dilutes the narrative, removing them and focusing solely on the Puritans as the primary antagonist will tighten the story. Multiple confrontations with them will reinforce the danger of the journey and the band's desperation to reach a safe haven. Also, the band gimmick adds nothing to the core plot, cutting it will allow the story to focus on discovering the source of their powers rather than a destination that never materializes. If Theo's death is essential, it should happen earlier in the story to give the characters time to process the loss and create tension about who might be next. This will also allow the group to grapple with the emotional fallout, making the stakes feel more personal and urgent. Alternatively, Sai could sacrifice herself for Pax, completing her redemption arc after her betrayal. This will not only add emotional weight but also reinforce the idea that no one is safe, heightening the tension for the rest of the journey. Many subplots feel disconnected and unresolved, cluttering the narrative without adding meaningful depth. Cutting this and focusing on the core story will give Dustborn much needed cohesion. Additionally, the characters should be more tightly aligned with the main plot, ensuring their arcs contribute meaningfully to the overall story. There are simply too many characters who join the crew without adding value. If the entire premise revolves around using fake IDs and visas to cross borders, why would they risk picking up undocumented individuals who will jeopardize the mission and their lives? Characters like Soul, Eli, Ophelia, Nine-Eye, and others feel unnecessary and underdeveloped. Instead of introducing so many support characters, the story could merge their roles into one or two well-defined companions who are part of the mission from the start. This will streamline the narrative and make the group's dynamic more coherent and impactful. If the story is built around the idea of the power of words, then all character abilities should reflect it in some way. However, characters like Siggy and Sai don't rely on words for their powers, which undermines the theme. The game needs to commit to either fully embracing the power of words concept or abandoning it altogether. If the theme is essential, then Pax's powers should remain unique in their connection to words, while other character abilities should be reimagined to align with the concept. This will create a more cohesive and believable world. Siggy should be a teenager and the fish out of water instead of Eli, serving as a better vehicle for world building while organically reconnecting with Pax throughout the adventure. The energy tree should always be the focal point in conversations as the group gets closer, looming larger in the sky. Rather than an afterthought, it should serve as the climatic destination where all character plotlines converge. Here, Pax would unlock her ultimate power not just for herself but to buff her friends in a way never seen before. This newfound strength could unite the group against the Puritans, creating a satisfying and emotional climax. Is Dustborn the worst game ever made? Not at all, but it's far from being a good one. It introduces a few interesting ideas to the story-driven adventure, such as the cinematic fixed angles for dialogue scenes and the conversation interrupted mechanics. Visually, it has a distinct comic book inspired aesthetic with solid artistic direction, reminiscent of Telltale games. However, Dustborn stumbles in nearly every other major aspect, especially storytelling. The narrative feels like no idea from the brainstorming phase was ever caught, resulting in a complete lack of focus. It's also missing basic features of the genre like scene skipping, which have been industry standards for decades. The combat is shallow, the minigames are forgettable, and the tone is all over the place, never setting on a clear atmosphere. The story completely falls apart in the second act, feeling rushed and unfinished. As a road trip story, it suffers from poor pacing and lack of resolution, ultimately failing to deliver a satisfying adventure. The idea of using words as magical spells in a modern setting is interesting, but the writers constantly break their own rules about how powers work, making the concept feel pointless. One of Dustborn's biggest flaws is how it treats its characters. Instead of giving them meaningful depth, they often feel like a collection of surface-level traits. Take Theo, for example. He's portrayed as Mexican, and as a Latino myself, I'm presumably meant to feel represented, but personally, I couldn't care less about his heritage as it plays no real role in the story, making it an empty detail. Compare this to Grim Fandango, a game that fully embraces its Mexican-inspired setting and folklore, weaving them into its narrative and world building. Dustborn doesn't do this, making its characters feel more like diversity checkboxes than fully realized people.
And yeah, and I think we were lucky to work with a lot of really wonderful people who gave us really good insights. We also worked with some really wonderful cultural sensitivity consultants who are like good and valuable people and game developers in the industry to have.
The game also seems confused about its own story, with elements that feel completely disconnected from the main plot. At its core, Dustborn is supposed to be about Pax becoming a better person and learning to use her powers in a positive way, but this central theme is buried under unnecessary subplots and inconsistent character arcs. If you're looking for a game that leans heavily into inclusivity, social media politics, and gender ideology, featuring neo-pronouns and the option to romance a trans character, then this game might have something unique to offer you. For everyone else though, Dustborn is a mixed bag of good ideas, terrible decisions, and poor execution. Even if you love everything about its themes, there are far better games that explore similar topics in a more compelling way. The game is almost always on sale at 60% off, but even at that price, it's hard to recommend as there are cheaper and better alternatives like Life's Strange or The Walking Dead Season 1, which offers stronger narratives, better character development, and more meaningful choices. If you're after a good adventure game with a compelling story, there are plenty of choices from the catalogs of LucasArts and Telltale games. Dustborn isn't so bad it's good, it's just boring. While there are a few positives, they aren't enough to salvage the experience. The game reminds me of The Room, with its endless scene of characters talking about mundane topics but where nothing substantially ever happens. However, unlike that movie, it lacks the unintentional charm that makes it ironically enjoyable. I wanted to like this game, but it failed to capture me. Even though I don't think Dustborn is as bad as some make it out to be, it's nearly impossible to recommend as there are far better adventure titles available. Even if you are desperate for a narrative-driven game, you're better off revisiting the classics or exploring modern titles that deliver a compelling story. This video was an incredible time-consuming endeavor, spanning over 3 months of research, rewrites, replays, and re-recordings to ensure a true and factual review. Throughout this process, I revisited classic adventure games and rewatched a variety of road trip movies to ensure I had a fresh perspective for comparison. Spending so much time with Dustborn allowed me to evaluate the game from multiple angles, resulting in what I hope is a nuanced and well-rounded conclusion. Creating this review was also a fascinating personal experience. In today's polarized gaming discourse, where extreme opinions often overshadow facts, leaving the games in the background, I wanted to uncover the truth about Dustborn myself. I tried to present all the information here based on facts, with all sources listed on the video description. I want to finish this video by saying that I purposely did not censor myself because I am just tired of the sterile style of YouTube nowadays. This decision means there's a good chance the video might be demonetized or hit with copyright claims, but I felt it was more important to provide context when necessary than to play it safe. Finally, it's my intent to make this channel grow, but never at the expense of quality. If you'd like to help shape its future and support what I'm doing, feel free to check out my Patreon. Have a good one and thanks for watching.
That was different. You make a living doing this? By the way, that song could be considered offensive in the Republic. This isn't Pacifica. People here don't like politics with their entertainment.